Thank you all so much for joining the conversation. My name is Beth Seling, and I lead operations for the VELA Education Fund. I'm thrilled to be here today for a couple of reasons. Number one, to connect with you all. I'm excited to tell you a little bit. I'm not going to share much because I want to keep the focus on them, but share a little bit about VELA because I feel like y'all are people. We're not often in a room where I'm like, wait, I want to talk to them. I want to talk to them. And you guys are doing the work that we want to support and fund. We're a nonprofit fund. And so I'm excited for you to learn about it a little bit and so that we can connect with you afterwards and figure out how we can support what you're doing. And then I'm really excited to highlight the ideas, the perspectives, and the work that these ladies to my left are doing in their own communities because they're really reimagining how learning happens for their families and their learners. So before we get there, just a little bit about VELA so you understand how the five of us on this stage came together. VELA launched in August of 2020, so we're coming up here on our second birthday pretty soon. We have a bold vision to transform the future of education to better align with the values and priorities of learners and families. And our role in that, the way we think about it, is empowering everyday entrepreneurs who we call permissionless innovators. Permissionless innovators are out there using their own creativity and resourcefulness to teach kids how it works best for them. We think about the concept of permissionless as people who are not beholden. They don't have to require the blessing of anyone who's in power. They get to do what they want to do and do it for their customers, their learners and families. So that's what we care about at VELA. How do we do that? We invest in everyday entrepreneurs. We make grants to them to support the solutions that they want to implement for their communities. We elevate their stories. We work hard on telling the stories and shining the light on them instead of us. We want more people out in the world to understand what is going on in the non-conventional space. And we facilitate community and collaboration among them. There are now a community of 1,300 of them and counting. In the last year and a half, we've made 1,300 grants, most of those micro grants, to people who are innovating on their own in their communities and serving their learners and families' needs. What's important, there are a lot of important things about them, but one of the things we've learned is that many of them, whether they're parents, whether they are teachers, whether they are administrators, whether they are community leaders, whoever they are, most of them identify primarily as an entrepreneur. We've heard so much about entrepreneurship today, and I love that. I love that concept, and I hear so many of y'all talking about it today, and you're going to hear from 4 of them here next to me. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to my colleagues, who I'm going to facilitate a dialogue with them so we can hear more, and then I'll save time at the end for questions from you all. Okay. Shireen Radigan from Colossal Academy in Florida. Amber Schimmel, who is a homeschooling advocate and is connected to the Magnolia Christian School in Florida. Debbie Gooding, who's with I thought I was going to do it from memory, Learning Choice Academies in California. And last but not least, Tamara Becker from Adamo Education in Arizona. So thank you all so much for being here with us today. Before we dig in and tackle a couple topics, if you all could just introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about who you are, how you describe your role, and if we heard so many different perspectives and ideas about what hybrid looks like, so if you could just share kind of how families or learners experience your program and what your orientation to hybrid is. Shireen, I'll start with you.
May I take this? Hello, can you hear me okay? Woo, okay. I am Shireen Radigan, and I am the owner, operator, bus driver, delivery person, nurse, nanny, garbage man, and lawn care specialist at Colossal Academy. So I do all of the hats, I should say. Colossal Academy is a micro middle school for active and curious teens and tweens. We work with ages 10 to 14 with the students that teachers would tell to sit down all the time and stop sharpening the pencil, and no, you can't go to the bathroom again. And we would probably diagnose them with ADHD. Some of them are formally diagnosed with ADHD, including the teacher. So I work with youth that really need to be outside actively and physically engaged with their environment. So we spend a lot of time in place-based learning. So how that looks for us is that we surf and we skate, and we take on physics of skateboarding with our partner Surf Skate Science, an amazing program. You should check them out for sure. And they teach the students the physics of it. Why is physics important? Why is it relevant? We know that dropout rates are really high with students that do not see relevancy in the education. We make it relevant, and we do that by introducing them to interesting content as well as a little bit of thrill. We got to fly airplanes. Well, I didn't, I was on the ground. But they got to co-pilot airplanes because it was interesting and relevant for them. Something else we do is we're an experience-based school. So they're experiencing their learning. It becomes a part of who they are. And this, for us, is we have a farm. And these students who didn't know where avocados came from are now farming and tilling and mulching and bringing from their soil, learning everything about the soil that you could ever possibly imagine, the bioorganisms that are important in it. We use that to launch our biology units as well as our agriculture science. So they bring their crops and then they learn how to cook them with our home economics class. And so they just graduated this week to have knives that are made out of metal in our classroom. And so we've just harvested all these tomatoes that they brought from seed and put it into the ground and nurtured these plants. And they made, we're plant-based, so they made plant-based tomato soup and bruschetta. So they're changing their palate, they're changing what's possible so that they can self-actualize. The more experiences we can give them, the faster they can self-actualize, the faster they can reverb to me what they need, the quicker I can then give them an expert in their field so that they can relate to and be like, maybe not coding, but maybe programming, right? So that's kind of that's like a nutshell of Colossal Academy. Thank you for, I'm ready for questions after everything, I'm sure. We'll have some questions of how we do everything, but we are rooted in Florida Virtual as an affiliate, so they are grounded with language arts and math with the Florida Virtual. So I'm Shireen.
Hello, I am Amber Schimmel. I'm a homeschooling mom of 5 kiddos, and I'm a homeschooling blogger and advocate. And I also teach psychology at Liberty University. And I am here, most importantly, representing Magnolia Christian School, which is located in Central Florida. Magnolia is a school that I would define, well, maybe I've learned today that there's not that there's not quite an exact definition, but a more traditional hybrid where the kids are at school 2 days a week, they're home 3 days a week. Our school does not have accreditation. It's more of just a homeschool support program. If any of you were in the accreditation session earlier, you know that people have passionate opinions about that. But as a mom who's been part of both an accredited hybrid school and a non-accredited hybrid school, this is just what works best for us at this time and for various reasons. And I have kids ranging in age from 8 to 17. My 17-year-old will, Lord willing, be part of Magnolia's first graduating class, which will be next year. Magnolia has about right over 200 students, ranging in age from early childhood through 11th grade. In Central Florida, it's a really supportive homeschooling community. There's really at least 10 that I know of off the top of my head, hybrid schools that are set up just like Magnolia. And interestingly, though, they can be hard to find if you don't know, basically if you don't know someone who goes to one. And even though I live in Central Florida and I'd been a part of a different one for 10 years, I had never heard of Magnolia until a really good friend of mine started working there. And so people ask me what's different about Magnolia, and as a parent, on the parent side of things, what's different for me is the community. And I've heard that from all of you also, that the community is really what parents are looking for. I really believe it's what students are looking for, because I've been a part of the traditional 5-day-a-week homeschooling world also, and that's what sometimes can be really hard to find. And Magnolia really, really cultivates community between teachers, between students and teachers, and between parents and teachers. And there's a reason why Magnolia's retention rate for all students at all grade levels is over 95%. So I'm also part of this panel to offer the perspective, like I mentioned, as a homeschooling parent and blogger. As a blogger, my blog started out more travel related, and then I thought, well, homeschooling is what allows me to travel a lot. And then people started really asking me questions about homeschooling, and I thought, well, I mean, that's actually one of the things I'm most passionate about in life, even though I don't personally want to run a school, but I'm really thankful that all of you do, so that parents like me have options. And so, but whenever I first started writing about it, I mean, many years ago, I really had no idea what to call it, because I didn't know, outside of Central Florida, I just wasn't connected to other people that were doing it. So I wanted to call it like luxury homeschooling or VIP homeschooling. And I would tell my friends, like, guys, this is amazing. Like, they give you the lesson plans, like, I just print them out, and then the kids sit down and do them. And then I sit next to them at a table, and we do all of our things, and I'm there to facilitate it. And it's just amazing. And so now, through my blog and my social channels and everything, I'm in the process of trying to help parents more discover that, and to learn and basically remember what they knew was true at the beginning, that they are the expert on their child. And especially in the educational world, like mom, dad, primary caregiver, both, you know your child best, and you know what's best for your child, whether it's a micro school, a pod school that I just learned about today, a hybrid homeschool, 5-day-a-week traditional homeschooling, that you are the expert, and that you know what's best, and that there are a world of options out there to support you in that choice. So I'm just really honored to be here and be part of this really historic event.
Hi, I'm Debbie Gooding. I'm the executive director of TLC, or Learning Choice Academy. We started in 2004, and I became the executive director in 2007. I was also a founder of our school. And we have 3 schools throughout San Diego County, up in North County, they kind of call it, Central County, and then East County, and down in Chula Vista. And we have 950 students total throughout all 3 schools. We started out as 1 school under 1 authorizer, and now we're 3 schools under 3 authorizers, because California is so much fun. And so we started off our school as a homeschool group, and we were there as teachers for support for homeschooling parents. And so we, had the credentials, and we gave them the curriculum. We gave them funds for extracurricular activities and so on. And our school kind of morphed into the hybrid. So we went from offering 1 day a week, and then 2 days a week, and now we're at 3 days a week. So we do a 3-day on-site, 2 days at home. One of our schools, just because of space, does 2 days on-site, 3 days at home. And then we also have our 5-day-a-week families that are homeschooling all the time. And so we give support to all of them. We're a TK to 12 school. And the reason why I'm here is VELA helped us. We have a CTE program for our high school kids, and we are tackling our homeless problem. Whether we're tackling it one family at a time, that's, it's slow and go, but we're teaching the students that we're building tiny homes, and it's part of our CTE, energy, environment, and utilities pathway. And these kids, they learn how to plans. They develop the plan. They do the CAD program. They're learning electrical, plumbing. We had a student last year, I spoke to her. She never ever picked up even a hammer before, and now she's running power tools. And this year she's a senior and she's our forewoman. She's heading the project and telling the people what they need to do. So it's really fun to watch them grow, and our plans are to keep it growing and put it at all of our schools. Right now it's only at our East County school. So we really want to have it for all of our students across the board at each school. And then the kids sell it. They learn about marketing and budgeting and all that, and we sell it so that we can fund it again. And so that's kind of where we're at with that. Yeah, I think that's it.
Are you guys still awake? Because it is after lunch, and we're all still tired. And if you're like Debbie and I, we're from the West Coast, so we've propped up open our eyes with toothpicks early this morning. My name is Tamara Becker, and I am the president, CEO, founder, crazy person who left a job as a superintendent for the largest online school in the state of Arizona and decided I wanted to put kids first and do something different in education and start a micro school program. So last February, I looked at my husband and I said, I've got an idea. And he doesn't really like it when I say that. He gets a little bit scared. So I told him what I was thinking, and he had seen all the stress that I had gone through as a superintendent, going through the pandemic, seeing what was happening with schools and kids and our niece and our nephew. And he's like, I think that's a great idea. I said, good, give me your inheritance. He did. I owe him. I'm in trouble. So I started to envision what this was going to look like. I knew about micro schools. I knew about, smaller, more intimate learning environments, reimagining of the one-room schoolhouse. I had these concepts as an assistant superintendent in the large charter network in Arizona. We partnered with a group called Prenda, some of you might know them, back in 2018. So I knew what this was about. And so I thought to myself, how can I do this differently? And I started to just put my business plan together. I wanted to make sure, as everybody does here, that we put kids first, that we really individualize that. So I had to define what that meant. What does it mean to individualize? On what level do I know the students? On what level do I know the parents? How am I going to set goals with them? And how are we going to chart that course to attain that? And I did all of this brainstorming and research and everything, and school opened on August 10th, and I had no clue what I was doing. After 25 years in education, it was like everything had gone out the window, and I didn't know what to do. And there were these 12 kids sitting there looking at me, and these 2 teachers staring at me, and they're like, okay, Tamara, what? And let me tell you, it has been an exciting and a fun opportunity and experience to go, okay, that did not work today, guess what? We're gonna pivot tomorrow. Oh, that still didn't work, well, we're gonna pivot. And why? Every time my teachers and I meet and we talk, why are we pivoting? Because we didn't do the right thing by kids that particular day. We didn't make them as successful and help them be as successful as they wanted to be or as they could have been that day. So what are we gonna do differently for them tomorrow? And so we started Adamo with 12 students this year. Adamo comes from the Latin word to fall in love with. I know it sounds corny, but we want kids to love learning. So we started with 12 kids. We're up to 25 in a community that had absolutely no school choice. And we will be opening our second location in my TV room. So my husband gets the main TV, and I lose my TV room because we're going to open another location in Queen Creek where I live. And what's really unique about that is I'm opening a new location in a community that has a ton of school choice. The problem is all of the school choice options in my community look exactly the same. So even though we're super saturated, dripping with school choice options, It's not something that's going to be a personalized, smaller learning environment for parents and students. Thank you.
I'm going to try this time. So at VELA, we invest in entrepreneurs on a trust basis. And that is because, Amber hit the nail on the head, we believe that parents know best what their kids need. And we believe that our entrepreneurs, in turn, are best positioned to know what their parents and learners want and to deliver those solutions. So in practice, that means we make grants with very little preconditions and very little oversight. We don't want to get in their way. We want to fund them and get out of their way and let them do the work that they're doing. Instead, we focus on learning. So our goal is to ask our entrepreneurs to come alongside of us and help us understand this work, right? Help us understand what the values and priorities are. Tell us more about the models so that we can learn about them and share them out and hopefully inform and transform. So last summer, in that vein, we conducted our first survey of we had 408 grantees. We got about an 80% response rate on our survey. So we have 323 people in our community who were willing to tell us all about their models. And we purposefully kept things very open-ended because we didn't want to constrain or lead. We really wanted, so we coded thousands of open-ended responses. And this thing right here in my hand, which we have more copies of in the room today, and it's online also. You can find Adam, my colleague here from VELA, or myself. We'll give you one, and we'll make sure you know where to find it online. This summarizes what our community told us. So we're really excited about this. It's the first of hopefully many of these pieces that we put out. One of the things that we explored in our survey is what motivates you as an entrepreneur to do this work? What really drives you to reimagine learning? And what we learned is what's motivating our entrepreneurs is standing in contrast a lot of times to what's motivating people within the traditional system. Maybe not surprising to many of you in this room. So I'd like to hear directly from our panelists, if you all wouldn't mind sharing what motivates you to reimagine learning every day. And I'll start down, Tamara, with you this time.
The fact that we haven't done it. We haven't put kids at the focus, at the center. It's all changed. And the fact that we haven't been doing anything different. I mean, if you look at business and industry, they're constantly innovating, they're changing, they're modifying and evaluating their systems and processes. When did we do that last? Did you hear what Rick was saying? I mean, we're not on the cusp of change here in education. So I took the leap because I really felt like I had something to give back to the educational landscape, and it was time for us to make a difference.
So my motivations are our families and my students. We have a triad in our mission statement that it's parent, student, and teacher, and we make sure that it's a seamless triangle. Like we work on that throughout our mission and vision all the time in our school, and we find it really important. And we have our teachers listen to what our parents want, and our teachers listening to what our students want. And even having the students tell the parents what they want. It's important for them to understand parents do have a vision of what they want their children to do, but also students have that vision of what they want to do. And sometimes they don't always match up. But, you know, it's good that they hear it too. So we work really closely with that. Every 6 weeks, we have a meeting with all three of them. Every one of our students we do that with. And so that listening to the stories, whether it's a kindergartner telling me about the butterflies that they grew in their classroom, to the high schoolers telling me about the CTE class or their robot class, or even our middle schoolers, like they might have done they did these really cool history masks. You know, just listening to those stories, that's what gets me up every day to come back to push even harder at the state level and at our even in our county. So yeah.
I'm gonna do that too, I think. As a homeschooling mom, what motivated me to be a homeschooling parent was just really basically wanting to spend more time with my kids. And I think this community is so wonderful because I said, you know, I've seen like, you know, back 17 years ago when my son was born, I thought I have this vision in my head of what homeschoolers look like, and I don't want to be that. And and I thought, I still want to like have a sense of self. I have things that I want to do, but I do want to be more in control of their learning. I want to know what they learn. I want to just walk alongside them and help develop their personhood and spend this precious short amount of time with them. But I only want to do that 3 days a week. So I just like started looking around and started getting connected with the homeschooling community, and then would sort of hear like little rumors of like, oh yeah, there's a school that does that. Like, and then that's how I eventually came to find Magnolia. And then I know that the founders of Magnolia, just, you know, like you said about the county that you're in now, there's a lot of choice, like I mentioned, in Central Florida, but the founders of our school just saw that things weren't, I mean, they just weren't quite serving the students in the school that they were previously in, which is exactly what happened to me. I was in a different hybrid homeschool that just wasn't quite right. And that's the thing, you should have the privilege and you should have the right and you should have the opportunity to find the one that's perfectly right for you and for your family. And so thankfully, my friends created this school that now I go to.
So motivations, are there any teachers here? If you're a teacher, raise your hand. Okay, so as a teacher, I'm a teacher, and there's a vocation and a sacred calling. I really do feel that to teaching. And I don't know if any of the other teachers can attest to that, but that was my experience of becoming a teacher. And in my mind, I was gonna be Miss Frizzle, and we're gonna get in a bus, and we're gonna go inside the digestive tract, and then we're gonna learn about the moon by going to the moon, and all these beautiful ideas of what I thought a teacher was, or even Sound of Music, we're gonna be singing on the side of a mountain. And none of that happened. It was like meetings and budget cuts. And I remember the moment when I thought, I can't do this anymore. I had papers lined up. I'm a math teacher. And I was like, wrong, no name. You know, and then I put it on the board. And then I took my dry erase marker. And I was like, if you don't collect this in 2 weeks, it's a 0. And then I was like, that's not Miss Frizzle. That's not who I signed up to be. And I had like kind of an identity crisis. So I left the public school. Also, I was really pregnant. I have 3 daughters. And I was breaking up fights. I was like restraining kids. And that's not a place that I want to be pregnant in. So I went to a very, very expensive, collegiately rigorous school where we had a helicopter landing pad on the roof, right? And there were like bodyguards and so, you know, the Secret Service. And if we ever had a meeting with the parents, we'd have to sign waivers and give our cell phones. It was intense. And I thought, well, I want to teach. I don't want to deal with behaviors. And then something else happened there, and I was like, I don't want to do that. That's for sure. That's not me either. I was like, maybe I'm a Montessori teacher. They love love, and they like nature. And I'm like, but they don't know how to read and write. Like, what is happening here? And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I think I guess I'm not supposed to be a teacher. Maybe there's something else out there for me. And then the pandemic happened, and some of the families said, you know what? We will homeschool our kids, and if you be the teacher. And I'm like, I can do that. 5 kids? Instead of 150 students on my roster, I have 5 kids that I have to be accountable for? That's all? And I have to just make sure they love learning. And I had 5 students that were completely disengaged. The light had gone out, and we reignited their love for learning. They want to get up. They wake their parents up to get to school every day. And there's a relationship we have, and I get to be who I knew. When you have a vision of who you're supposed to be, and you get to have that vision, all I want is everybody to have that. I want you to be who you came here to be, and I want to share that with everybody. Not only my story, but I want all the students to be who they saw in their head that they were, and that it's completely possible. And how I do that is that I introduce them to as many experts in the field. We just interviewed an astronaut candidate, and she had them design a spacesuit by which astronauts could eat while they were outside of the it was a big challenge. And anyway, those plans got brought to SpaceX and they were delivered. And we're re-infusing and activating the young people's voices that have been so disconnected for a long time that we just need to turn on the amplifiers, reconnect them with adults, bring in their ideas because they are solving large problems that we don't know how to solve, and they're doing it really well. And so my role now has really shifted to like, they said, make sure the spacesuit is green, like just trying to make sure that the adults in the room are listening to the young people. And sometimes you need an adult to pass on the word because as adults, we don't think that they know anything, or we think that they don't have a place, or that can wait till later. But they're ready now, and they're activated now, and they have so many ideas, and they're ready to solve problems. We just need to give them the stage, the platform, the tools, and to do that. So those are kind of my motivators. I wanted to be a great teacher. I wanted a space for my wild and crazy the mini-me, my daughter. And then I also needed, in some ways, to heal my own education. That was like sit in a chair, look at a wall. I grew up in public schools. So yeah, those are kind of my 3 motivators. I think I went over my 45 seconds. Sorry about that.
Not at
Hey,
all.
Shireen, let's coordinate on the SpaceX thing because my kids are going to be talking to the pilot.
See how this works? You see? Yeah,
We're talking to the
Great.
pilot before the end of the year.
awesome.
So.
Great, yay.
True story, right before this session started, Shireen looked right in my eyes and said, this is what you were born to do. Not making that up. This is what you were born to do. So shifting gears a little bit, in our survey that I mentioned, we also asked about how do you define success for your programs and for the learners that you serve? And I think you will also not be surprised to hear that the results offered a great contrast to what we see in the traditional system. For example, survey respondents said that they prioritize responsiveness to learners and families above all else, and typically evaluate their program's success on their ability to do that. What do my families and learners want, and am I delivering that? To measure learners' success, they talked about human flourishing. This came up over and over again in open-ended responses, and many of our entrepreneurs report that they don't generally assess performance with standardized assessments. They favor alternative methods such as observations, portfolios, self-reflections, et cetera. So I want to ask each of you how you think about measuring success, and specifically within the hybrid context, which can potentially, I'm not sure, present some complications there. How do you do that? You want to start this way or that way? Debbie, you want to start this time?
Sure. So there's many ways to define success. So unfortunately, the state of California and for our charter authorizers, you do have to have some sort of database type of, like we use NWA and iReady, the mapping, and then state test scores. So that's one way. I came from a traditional public school in 2001 into a homeschooling, and then started TLC in 2004. But back then, test scores were, and I used to tell my parents, well, just show up, take the test, and then the stakes keep they raise them and raise them. But one of the best things about success for me is watching the students, because a lot of our students have been with us as families. So I've had the opportunity, even as director, I kept students on my roster because you build these huge relationships with your families and the community that they live in. And so I had a whole family. I had 2 really big families. One had 6 children and one had 7. And I watched, they started with 2 or 3 kids with me, and by the time their oldest is graduating, they're having another child, And so I'm still in connections with a lot of these kids, but it's really fun to watch them grow up and come back and they work for you. That has been like one of our most amazing things. Is we have 5 students have come back to be teachers for us, and one of them was an autistic child whose mom used to come to us and cry every day. I don't know what I'm going to do with this kid. and he is an amazing teacher. So for all of the people out there with their children who you cry about every day, there are success stories out there. So that's one of my ways. I love just watching the kids grow up, and it's been fun. As your schools get older, you get to see that, and it's amazing.
I can go. Again, my answer's kind of twofold for Magnolia. I think, as I discussed it with them and as a parent, their, like I mentioned, their retention rate is over 95%. Like once people go there, they don't leave. And they only started 5 years ago. And I've heard so many of you talk about these amazing growth stories. And I'm, in the times when I'm in the office volunteering and whatever, like the phone is literally ringing off the hook. I mean, people want to go there, and we just moved into a new space and we're totally full. So, I mean, like many of you, that's just, I mean, a really great sign that you're doing something right. And when people hear about it, they want to be part of it. And when they're part of it, they're so thankful they got in and they're not going to leave. And so that's the schooling part. And as a parent, and what, I mean, I really think you guys are enabling parents to do. I mean, I have 5 kids. Each of them are different. They all go to Magnolia, but what this type of schooling allows me to do is to really have time to see each of them. And I really believe as the parent that the final responsibility is with me, like the ultimate responsibility for their education is on me. And so, you know, whatever, having time to develop their interests and the school system that I've chosen to be a part of, that system allowing me to have time to develop those interests is really important to me. And just as a parent, just having more time to spend time with my kids. And we do like a morning meeting time or a circle time or whatever you want to call it as a family every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for an hour. It's non-negotiable. And it's just like the most precious time. And I sort of started it on a whim many years ago, and then I was just like, this is great. And now my 17-year-old will sometimes be like, okay, Mom, like we've talked, it's been an hour and 15 minutes. I got like AP calculus to do here. Like, but it really is just, I mean, such an amazing opportunity to have had this time with my kids and to be able to develop relationships with them, and for them to be able to develop relationships with each other as siblings is just of utmost importance to me.
Success, right? So there's a lot of different ways to measure, and you know, I'm still a math teacher inside, so I want to measure things sometimes. But you know, I think about math esteem. I have one particular student that I think about her all the time, and she came in with she's 13. She came in with about 4th grade level, and now she'll be entering 7th grade level math. But more than that, it's not just that she has mastered 4th, 5th, 6th grade. It's that she's answering with confidence in her voice, right? That she's raising her hand, that she's helping younger students, that this to me tells me that she hasn't just answered the questions right and passed the exams, right? That she actually is in love with math, because I'm in love with math, but she's also in love with math, so then we like start to like jive on math. Something else we do is their entrepreneurship that they are in charge of. They need to, we spend a great deal of time in the community, and so really us going into entrepreneurship and having them sell what they wanted to. By the way, they made a ton of money at the last fair we went to, and I might actually ask them for a loan. That to me was an evidence when we first get into the community and they just are like doughy-eyed and how do I do this when I get off the bus, and to actively speaking to people and selling their products. We probably spent 3 days on the entrepreneurship because we had already, they're so confident at that point that they were ready to present bracelets and lemonade and cupcakes and face painting and a comic book to the community for sale. Something else, you know, on the more, I'm still a teacher and I still come from traditional ed, so there's some things that I'm like, I just need to know. So we have, we do take the NWEA math map assessment. We do portfolios, and every Friday they create a website They've bought their domain, they create the website that explains their learning. We know moving into universities that this is what universities are looking at rather than SATs, ACTs, and so I want them to be familiar with doing that, explaining their learning, but also a whole page on their skill set. They know how to fly drones, and we have a roofing company that wants to hire them this summer to make money. So the other thing that we do is parent feedback. I do once a month parent feedback. When they enter the program, we do a student survey and a parent survey, and they're the exact same questions, and often they're very different answers. And then towards the closer and closer they get to having the same answers, then I start to understand we've done our work, that the parents are understanding the child, and the child is understanding themselves. So those are kind of some of the ways, and then enrollment, I'm getting a lot of attention right now for people who want the space, and people are like, please build the high school. And I'm like, oh, I don't like high schoolers. Ooh. But, that tells me that they're interested in maintaining what we have and growing into the next stages of their life.
Well, I'm not going to say anything that's different or unique because it's the same for me, but I will share Mallory's story with you. Mallory is a 6th grader who started with us this year. Her sister Layla is in 5th grade. They both come to the same school. Layla came to my presentation over the summer. She was really excited. She was jazzed. Mom, I want to go to Adamo. Mallory was not going to go to the district school. She was not going to go anywhere. She was going to stay at home. She has severe anxiety. She was a recluse. She didn't want to be around people, and she literally told her mom, Holly, I'm not going anywhere, so good luck. Because I partner with a large charter network in the state of Arizona, where I happen to be the assistant superintendent for 8.5 years a while back, I could get Mallory enrolled because we partner with the online school. So she is a student of EdKey through Arizona Distance Learning and is funded by the state as a student in an Arizona online instruction school. So I could enroll her. And so we would then start feeding through Layla, poor girl, start feeding information. Oh, Mallory, guess what I did at school today? Oh, you should come because this is what we're doing tomorrow. And Mallory would come maybe one day, and then she wouldn't be there for a couple of days again. And she was refusing to do any work at home. So it got to the point where we had to really dangle a big carrot. And we went on our first field trip. And we thought that was going to be the carrot, and that was absolutely not the carrot because she did not want to be out in the community, and we didn't know that. So it just took us some time. It took me calling her. It took me talking to Mom. It took our teacher talking to her, who she had. Mallory then started to come to school pretty consistently about October, but now she's behind, and she's a 6th grader, and she's already 3 years behind in math because most kids are. Sorry, Shireen. And and she's been through the pandemic where she didn't really have instruction for the last 2 years. So fast forward to January, we start to do some research, listening and speaking, and I get a phone call from Holly one night. Mallory is not coming to school tomorrow, Tamara. Why? Well, because she has to get up and give a presentation. I said, that's the only reason she's not coming to school? Yeah, she's terrified of having to stand up in front of her 12 peers that she has been working alongside of this entire time. So I literally start talking to Mallory. We come up with a plan. She walks in the next day. She gives a presentation as one of the best presenters out of all of her peers. We redid another presentation just to give them practice with listening and speaking standards and skills. She was again at the top of her class. So Mallory's anxiety, her fear, all of that have been taken away based on this smaller learning environment where we all know her, where she trusts us and she feels safe. And so I think that is a measure of true success. I have 100% retention for my kids next year. We have 12 more kids, I think, enrolled for next year. We have our state assessments. We can show growth on MAP, NWEA. We have MobyMax where we can show that these kids are making academic gains in closing their learning gaps. I don't know, Mallory's story is still the best to me.
Amen. So I'm going to try to explore 2 more topics and then save time for an audience question or 2. So a topic that comes up often in our conversations with our entrepreneurs is empowering learner and family agency. And I've heard so much from so many of you today about how that can look so different for families and learners, even within your own programs, day by day and week by week. And I'm struck by not only the variation, but this steady stream of information that's coming out saying that parents post-pandemic might want some more flexibility and agency and some more creativity to make decisions about how they spend time. So I wonder if y'all could, you're running very different programs, but the common thread is, I think, learners and families get to make decisions about how often they participate and how, and I wonder if you could just kind of share some thoughts on how you structure that with them and how it is transformative on their experience.
I think part of it is, even at our school, we'll have, maybe a family of 4, and we might have one of them on the hybrid program, one of them at a homeschool, and they might have their other 2 kids in a traditional public school. So it is nice that the parent can look at what that child needs at that moment and place them where they feel is best. And that flexibility, like you're talking about, is important. I feel like they're not every kid fits in the box. They just don't. And our school definitely is for those kids that are out of that box. If they could be in the traditional school, they'd still be there, and they're not. And the traditional schools are failing them. And we gave them that area that they could express themselves and learn. And so, like I said, when we sit down every 6 weeks, we sit down with a plan for every one of our students. So I love special ed too. It's one of where I have my heart. But almost every one of our kids has like an IEP plan. They have their own personalized plan, exactly how it's going to go. Not every student has the exact same curriculum. They might all be in the same class, but some of them might not do well with that type of a book, and we find something different, but they can still participate. So it's really important to have those options open, and as a school that we try to think outside of that box, to not try to put those kids in the box. Yeah.
I think she said great.
So I think we have plenty of evidence that parents showed renewed interest or increased interest in these types of models, innovative, non-conventional models during the pandemic. And you might hear stories out there, though, that as things hopefully get back to some normalcy here, that this exploding demand is going to go away and everyone's going to go back. I don't know about y'all, but that is not what we are seeing in our community at all. One anecdote from VELA, we recently, typically people come into our community through our microgrants, which are $25,000 and less. And then for organizations that are in our community that have unmet demand and who are running non-traditional learning environments, and we opened up an opportunity to say, if you have unmet demand that you could accommodate right now, please come back to us and we would love to give you some more resources to help meet this exploding demand. This is very responsive. We hear this over and over again. We have so many families who want to come, and we don't have space, we don't have teachers, et cetera. So we opened up this grant opportunity thinking, okay, we've got 1,300 entrepreneurs in our community. I don't know what we were thinking, but we were like, maybe we'll make like 20 or 30 grants in this regard. In 2 weeks' time, we got 550 applications for $25 million worth of requests to meet unmet demand. These are programs that are already open that want to grow 1 time, 2 time, 3 time to meet what's in their community. And our surveys suggest the same, that the overwhelming majority of our grantees say we're going to keep going. Many of them were existing long before the pandemic, but even if they started during, they're going to keep going. So I would just leave it with this, and then we can turn to the audience questions. Can you each share how you're thinking about the future and where this is going for you? And if you have any thoughts about what it would take to continue and sustain the work, I'd love to hear.
So starting up is hard. There's costs and things that you don't necessarily know or you anticipate. So the money from VELA has really been helpful in getting something started and launching something new. And it's about, in Queen Creek, getting those 4 kids to then be up to 12 kids, you know, or hiring a teacher and making sure that you're going to have that revenue stream to pay that teacher for that full year so that you can make a commitment to growing the program. And so the VELA funds have been really helpful for me as I've started my program, and as now I'm expanding my program, because that's like you guys have given us an opportunity to ignite and or create what it was we wanted to see happen for parents and students in our communities. And I think, you know, I see Adamo expanding to a small scale. We don't need to be super, super large because we want to make sure that the programming for students and parents is implemented with fidelity.
Yeah, and along those same lines, it's been amazing too. We applied again for another grant so that we can expand our tiny homes and allow more students to have that opportunity, because not every student is going to go to college. And sometimes parents don't like me saying that, but they're not every kid is meant to be there. And so through our tiny home, these kids are getting opportunities to learn electricity and become electricians, or plumbing and become plumbers, and it's been exciting to watch them, and so we want to expand it on to all of our schools to give more opportunity.
I'm going to open the high school. So I think, you know, the concept is really 30-year-old millionaires so that children can, well, no, they won't be children then, but they'll be adults who can work with passion instead of being tied to having to go to work, right? They're working because they're passionate about whatever it is they're doing. How we plan to do that is give them a really great skill set that they could have entrepreneurship opportunities within the community, fund their Roth IRAs, get their 529 saving plans really well funded so that when they turn 30, they can retire. Yeah, it's a pretty good life. So. Can you do that for me? I'm doing it for my own job. I'm like, you're the beta test, kids.
Well, and I just wanted to say, I mean, my youngest child's only 8, so I'm going to be doing it for a while yet. And it's really awesome to think like how I mean, I know so many, if like almost all of you are parents, and to think that for our children, like my kids, this is all they've ever known is hybrid homeschooling. And so, you know, we're raising an entire generation of people who, for them, this is normal. Like my kids literally don't know anything else. So although maybe we are trailblazers, trailblazer-ish, for them, like for a whole generation of people, this is going to be normal. And I think that's just a really beautiful thing. And to see what they'll do in the future is really amazing.
2 questions, and specifically a general question and then one specifically for Debbie, because I lived for 12 years in Carlsbad, so I'm highly familiar with San Diego County. First is, demographically, are you seeing that most of the student households that come to you all are 2-parent households? And do you find that there is an economic level that is a floor for this? And the only reason I ask is not because of you particularly, but I'm wondering what the implications are for this type of entrepreneurship on a broader scale.
So for me, our schools, we're at 55% free and reduced lunch. So it's across the board. So we have one in Claremont, and then La Mesa and Chula Vista. So, and we've got, I forgot where I was going with this. So 55% free and reduced lunch, and then socioeconomic, we're you know, pretty high up there too. So it's open. Charter schools, our public schools, we have to enroll everybody. There is no, I know people think we do slim pickings, but we don't. And you know, it is nice to be able to give that opportunity for all students and not just a select few. So yeah.
As far as at my program, we have probably at least a third of our families are single parent homes, whether it be the mother or the father. We have a pretty diverse group of students. We also have 2 students who are on the autism spectrum out of our 25, one who is dyslexic. So I would say that the makeup, and it's bizarre, it's almost a 50-50 split boys and girls in our 4 through 7 and K through 3. So it's almost 50-50 split. It's just weird that it happened that way. So I think ours looks representative of a typical community or traditional school, but not necessarily the community that we're in Fountain Hills is very affluent. It's just that we don't, a lot of our families are the white collar parents that are working in that community. So, sorry, blue collar. It's a collar. I'm tired.
Can you hear me? Okay. At our school, yeah, was that, stop? Yeah, go, yeah.
Hi, I'm really inspired. I told Amber I watched a YouTube video. That's the reason I came here, because I had the same feelings. Everything she said really resonated with me. So I want to give her a shout out for just saying what so many parents are thinking and feeling. I hear the word entrepreneurship. Is there a business model that is most recommended if those of us who are interested in replicating what you've done? Do you charge parents? Do you fundraise, GoFundMe? Like, where is the entrepreneurship in terms of revenue, I guess, or bringing money in?
Like us as entrepreneurs or the students as entrepreneurs?
You
That's
guys
a
as
great
entrepreneurs.
question. No, I was like a teacher that I'm going to start a school. I had no idea. I really thought principals were lying when they said there's a budget cut. I'm like, they're just cheap. Like I truly had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. So VELA's been amazing at having community meetings and having experts, peer experts, to talk about how they were able to write their budget, their forecast for the next 10 years, and really make sure that your profit loss statement is done correctly, and how to not be redundant, and how to make your business cards, and how to be a business person. So a lot of that's come from this, and also SCORE, which is an amazing organization for entrepreneurs who are just need a mentor. And I have a really great mentor that taught me so much. And so I'm learning how to be a business person. What anchors me is my teaching and really the students. But and as I'm learning, I'm sharing with whoever wants to learn. I'm a teacher, I'll teach. So.
And with my experience being in, administration, I've been exposed to a lot of this. Although I'll tell you, it's totally different. I had to decide, am I going to be a for-profit or a nonprofit? I'm a nonprofit. How do I go about setting that up? Just like Shireen said, that was a big learning curve for me. Any entrepreneur always needs to have a lawyer, a bookkeeper, and there's something else. I don't have it yet. Whatever it is, it's that one. I've got to get it. What? Oh. Yeah, I don't think that's what it was, but I've got the insurance. So, so I think that there's not necessarily a clear cut plan. I think, like Shireen said, VELA and finding a mentor and really processing with somebody to help figure out. And I know there's a lot of people here that can help do that.
For what it's worth, many, if not most, of the people that we make microgrants to are not incorporated in any sort of formal entity yet. There are many people that are just want to try an early stage idea, and we are able to get them the resources they need to take the first step. And I've learned a lot the past year from our entrepreneurs, but one of the things that's been the most surprising is that despite how self-determined all of them are and how independent and how creative and resourceful, they want to collaborate. And so there's this incredible spirit, and you can see it here. We have a digital community where we have 50% of our 1,300 entrepreneurs are participating and sharing ideas every day, and we started to lead community calls, and then all of a sudden we had entrepreneurs coming like, I want to share with everybody else about what I'm doing. So that's kind of what's next for VELA, is try to figure out how do we facilitate this knowledge share across this amazing community who are all doing very different things, but are united by this concept of wanting to do right by learners and families. I think we're out of time, so thank you so much, Shireen, Amber, Debbie, Tamara, thank you. Thank you all for being here.